Harvard School newspaper now reporting that the university's president, Claudine Gay, will resign this afternoon. She has recently been hit by allegations of plagiarism and a campus controversy over anti-Semitism.
This just dropped. Harvard's Professor Claudine Gay, who is also now the president of the university, at least as of this morning, has resigned. Nominally, it was about the plagiarism issues, where this woman appears like she's been plagiarizing a good portion of the articles that she's ever written. But it also comes in the aftermath of this debate about campus free speech. Now, here's my view. One lesson is affirmative action is not only bad in college admissions, it's bad in college university president hiring. If this was a person who was hired for affirmative action, it became a lot harder to fire her, but thankfully the right result was reached and she stepped aside. But where does Harvard go forward from here? That's the real question. You're going to have the people who say that they need a president who takes a stronger stand against anti-Semitic speech. I view it differently. I think we need a president who takes a stronger stand for free speech of Harvard, and also a president of the United States who does the same thing. So I'm going to do my part, and I hope Harvard's board steps up too. Free speech, baby.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the victimhood coalition of the left falling apart, okay? Because like I told you guys, this Israel-Palestine situation was going to destroy the left, okay? I told you guys that the first day it happened, right? And lo and behold, we have another casualty of the victimhood wars, the oppression Olympics, okay, that the left is currently engaged in. And this time, we have to talk about Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, who is responsible for building Harvard's diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucracy, aka their censorship apparatus, which was used to silence opinions that they didn't like, okay, and to enforce racist policies like, for example, affirmative action, in which you had whites and Asians be discriminated against when it comes to admissions. They also tried to do things like dename buildings that were deemed to be racist, okay, all types of crazy stuff that they do on college campuses. She was basically running that at Harvard, okay? And as president, again, she was the head of their DEI bureaucracy that has come crumbling to the ground after this hearing that happened in Congress, in which Claudine Gay refused. She refused to formally denounce the anti-Semitic rhetoric and actions that were happening on campus towards Jewish students. And again, this is the beginning of the fall of the DEI empire that she was the head of at Harvard. Take a look.
A Harvard student calling for the mass murder of African Americans is not protected free speech at Harvard, correct?
Our commitment to free speech...
It's a yes or no question. Is that corrected? Is that okay for students to call for the mass murder of African Americans at Harvard? Is that protected free speech?
Our commitment to free speech
It's a yes or no question. Let me ask you this. You are president of Harvard, so I assume you're familiar with the term intifada, correct?
I've heard that term, yes.
And you understand that the use of the term intifada in the context of the Israeli-Arab conflict is indeed a call for violent armed resistance against the state of Israel, including violence against civilians and the genocide of Jews. Are you aware of that?
That type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me.
And there have been multiple marches at Harvard with students chanting, quote, "There is only one solution, intifada revolution," and, quote, "globalize the intifada." Is that correct?
I've heard that thoughtless, reckless, and hateful language on our campus, yes.
So based upon your testimony, you understand that this call for intifada is to commit genocide against the Jewish people in Israel and globally, correct?
I will say again, that type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me.
Do you believe that type of hateful speech is contrary to Harvard's code of conduct, or is it allowed at Harvard?
It is at odds with the values of Harvard.
Can you not say here that it is against the code of conduct at Harvard?
We embrace a commitment to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, offensive, hateful. It's when that speech crosses into conduct that violates our policies against bullying, harassment,
Does that speech not cross that barrier? Does that speech not call for the genocide of Jews and the elimination of Israel?
When
You
that
testify that you understand that is the definition of intifada. Is that speech according to the code of conduct or not?
We embrace a commitment to free expression and give a wide berth to free expression, even of views that are objectionable.
You and I both know that's not the
offensive.
case. You were aware that Harvard ranked dead last when it came to free speech. Are you not aware of that report?
As I observed earlier, I reject that characterization.
It's the
of our
data shows
campus.
it's true. And isn't it true that Harvard previously rescinded multiple offers of admissions for applicants and accepted freshmen for sharing offensive memes, racist statements, sometimes as young as 16 years old? Did Harvard not rescind those offers of admission?
That long predates my time as president.
But you
so I can't
understand
speak.
that Harvard made that decision to rescind those offers of admission.
I have no reason to contradict the facts as you present them.
Correct, because it's a fact. You're also aware that a Winthrop House faculty dean was let go over who he chose to legally represent, correct? That was while you were dean.
That is an incorrect characterization of what transpired.
What's the characterization?
I'm not going to get into details about a personnel matter.
Well, let me ask you this. Will admissions offers be rescinded or any disciplinary action be taken against students or applicants who say, from the river to the sea or intifada, advocating for the murder of Jews?
As I've said, that type of hateful, reckless, offensive speech is personally abhorrent to me.
Yeah, so you see that, you hear that, okay? What you see there is the Harvard president apparently not denouncing anti-Semitism enough, okay? And the hypocrisy is stunning because, again, Harvard, when it comes to so-called hateful speech that goes in the direction of people like her, for example, a black woman, you know, hey, that's something they have a zero tolerance for. They will go as far as to rescind your acceptance into the university if they deem your speech or your actions or your behavior to be racist, aka it coincides with political views that they disagree with, right? They also don't have much of a tolerance for allowing conservatives on campus or people that, again, disagree with the left to be able to speak freely on campus without being harassed and shouted down and subject to protests and riots from the woke students. Again, it's just amazing how that works, right? All of a sudden, Harvard now believes in free speech when it comes to the harassment of Jewish students, okay? So now you have this Harvard president facing immense pressure to resign and to step down and to be fired because of her inability to denounce anti-Semitism on campus, okay? And initially, Harvard decided that, hey, we're not going to force her to resign, okay? And then there were accusations of plagiarism that came after that, in which it was discovered that in her academic papers, in which she apparently doesn't have too many of them compared to her peers, okay, despite the fact that she is president of Harvard, and she also, for example, tried to ruin the careers of fellow black scholars, like, for example, a Roland Fryer who has published more work in 1 year than she's published in her career, in which, you know, this guy was anti-woke, right? He published anti-woke research papers that went against the left's narrative when it comes to racism and policing. It just so happens that this woman tried to destroy this guy's career, again, for pushing against the narrative, accusing him of all types of crazy stuff. But her herself, when it comes to her own academic research and papers, first and foremost, again, she studied African-American history and things like that, like things that, in my opinion, don't really garner that much respect in academia. But anyways, she apparently was plagiarizing her own stuff, okay? The little research that she did produce, the papers that she did write, her own, you know, doctoral thesis, there was instances of plagiarism in her work, okay? And that is called people to question her qualifications in regards to why is she the president of Harvard in the first place. So that, along with the refusal to denounce anti-Semitism, has led to today's news, bombshell news, which is that the Harvard president has resigned. And the reason why, again, this is bombshell news is because Harvard initially defended her, right? And they still are kind of defending her. They did their own research into the plagiarism accusations and basically admitted that, yeah, she plagiarized some things, but, you know, it was a lot of technical academic writing, okay? So therefore, you know, we kind of going to give her a pass, right? We're not going to hold her to the same standards that we hold everybody else when it comes to plagiarism and stuff. We'll give her a pass. And if you listen to outlets like CNN, they will have you believe that this lady didn't do anything wrong, right? There's nothing that she really did wrong, okay? Or that the accusations against her are minor.
These plagiarism allegations, where Claudine Gay has had to issue corrections, multiple corrections. Now, we should note that Claudine Gay has not been accused of stealing anyone's ideas in any of her writings. She's been accused of sort of more like copying other people's writings without attribution. So it's been more sloppy attribution than stealing anyone's ideas. But nonetheless, you put all of that together.
Okay, so people thought that she would hold on to her job. And that's why it's a surprise that today she's announcing that she is resigning. But I mean, it's pretty obvious why she's resigning is because money talks and everything else is BS. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about here as the woke revolutionaries are boohoo, whining and crying racism, right? Racism over the fact that essentially this woman is resigning and she's being forced out because, again, the money is being withdrawn from Harvard over her comments, because that's really what it's about. It's not really about the plagiarism stuff. This is what they say to make it legit, right? But it's really more about the inability to denounce the anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus. So you have Ember X. Kendi, who's a race hustler. He says, quote, racist mobs won't stop until they topple all black people from positions of power and influence who are not reinforcing the structure of racism. What these racist mobs are doing should be obvious to any reporter who cares about truth or justice as opposed to conflicts and cliques. Too often, mainstream reporters join the racist mob or give it credibility, as they did in this case, just as they did a century ago. Yeah, so this guy's boohoo, whine, and cry racism, and so are a bunch of other woke revolutionaries on the internet as well, too.
Years down the road, historians are going to look around and they're going to say, how did we get here? What was the turning point in American history that would cut funding to higher education and lead to a lack of diversity in academia, smother academic freedom? What was that moment? And it would be this one. It would be this moment, and how international politics and anti-Semitism was weaponized and used to oppress black leadership once again. This is that moment. This is a loss, a net loss.
Friends, we have some insane breaking news to get to. So I'm sitting in the bathroom doing my fucking skincare routine, you know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, my husband, who went to Harvard, said that he got an email saying this. Dear members of the Harvard community, it is with a heavy heart but a deep love for Harvard that I write to share that I will be stepping down as president. Guys, they ousted Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard. They've been on a witch hunt against her for weeks, and now they finally got what they wanted. The resignation of Dr. Gay marked an abrupt end to a turbulent tenure that began in July. Her stint was the shortest of any president in the history of Harvard since its founding in 1636. She was, and this is not incidental, the institution's first black president and the second woman to leave the university. Now, I want you guys all to remember that this witch hunt started because Elise Stefanik, who is a fascist representative from New York, who is a Trump sycophant and had nothing to say when Trump had dinner, a private dinner with Ye and other known white supremacist Nick Fuentes. She also had nothing to say when Trump recently said that immigrants were poisoning the blood of this country. Does anyone in class want to share who that infamous quote came from? Just understand that Elise Stefanik doesn't give a fuck about anti-Semitism. She doesn't care about Jewish people at all. Just understand that this little puppet show that they put on was simply about trying to silence the voices of pro-Palestinian activists who were speaking out against the ongoing genocide in Gaza. They knocked out the president of Penn pretty early. I feel like they've had a little bit of a harder time knocking out the president of MIT because she is Jewish, but I'm sure they'll find a way. And in order to knock out the president of Harvard, since, you know, they always have to reach back into their racist playbooks, they had to go into the old, she's not really that talented, she's not really that smart, she plagiarized something more racism about black people, let's get her kicked out routine. Because the implication always has to be that if a black person succeeds and gets in a high role, they didn't really earn it, you see. They could never really earn it. It's always some type of affirmative action.
Yeah, so you see, they heard that. The woke revolutionaries are boohoo, whining, crying, melting down. Racism, right? It's racism. What these people don't understand is that the cries of racism, okay, and always pulling the bigotry card is how you got here in the first place, right? This is how you got to this point in the first place where she's become a casualty of the sword that she's wielded throughout her whole career to get where she's at, okay? I want people to understand, because the reason why this happened, it ain't got really much to do with the plagiarism stuff, right? I don't want to sit here and play games with you guys, because some people are going to say, oh, it's because of the plagiarism. Nah, they don't give a shit about that, right? Nobody, they don't care about that, okay? That's not why she's stepping down, okay? Plagiarism was just an accusation, and I'm not saying it's not true. What I'm saying is that it was just there to make it legit, right? To make it seem like, well, she's not being fired because she allowed free speech on campus, right? Again, selective free speech, let's be clear here. But that is why she was fired, okay? Let's not get it twisted. She was fired over the anti-Semitism thing, right? The plagiarism thing ain't really got that much to do with it. As you have investors, rich people, like, for example, Bill Ackman, who has basically led a crusade against President Claudine Gay, in which it has cost the school more than $1 billion, right? So when you're talking about $1 billion in donations, that is a hefty fine to pay in order to keep somebody like her in power. And I think that she probably thought that, you know what, for the sake of the university, for the sake of the institution, I'm going to have to voluntarily step down, right? Which, I mean, let's be real, it's involuntary, okay? She's been forced out because the money has forced her out, right? The, you know, rich people, some of whom happen to be Jews, right? They basically said, look, we can't fund this overt anti-Semitism on campus. We're pulling our money out. And that's ultimately what led to her firing, okay? Again, I don't want you guys to get it twisted. The plagiarism stuff is just the cherry on top. That is the, legitimate reason, right? When, again, the real reason is that she selectively allowed free speech that pissed off the wrong people. Because let's be real, this woman is not pro-free speech. She's only pro-free speech when it comes to views that she agrees with, right? Which, again, these leftists are overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. However, because the victimhood coalition is a mix of people who otherwise are not aligned with each other, except in their crusade against the conservative Christian white male, that naturally will cause problems when it comes to certain conflicts. Like, for example, again, the Israel-Palestine situation, where you do have people actually losing their lives, and there's a lot of passion on both sides of that issue. And this was the ultimate recipe for disaster. Okay, and this is why I really don't feel bad for Miss Claudine Gay, even though I think what happened to her in regards to her being fired for, again, selectively allowing free speech, I think is, you know, it's neither here nor there. I personally am annoyed about the fact that Republicans seem to be more passionate about pushing back against anti-Semitism, more so than they're passionate about pushing back against anti-whiteism, because, again, this is something that's been happening on college campuses for a while now in regards to these students being radical as hell and rhetoric that some people would deem to be hateful or could spark some type of violence. This has been happening for a while. And there was not this much passion from the Republican Party in regards to pushing back against that. So now all of a sudden they want to use all the power that they can to take down this lady. And I'm not going to sit here and give them a round of applause for it, right? Because I wish they had this much passion when it comes to real issues in our country. Like, for example, the border, right? I wish they had this much passion when it comes to other issues that we've been dealing with rather than this. But hey, you know, this is something that they're going to take a victory lap on. I'm personally not super excited about it. I really don't care too much about it. All I know is that this lady deserved exactly what she got because she is a victim of her own ideology, okay? This victimhood race, this race to the bottom when it comes to who's the biggest victim, right? You're seeing firsthand who's won, right? Who's going to win every single time, okay? Who's going to win? You already said who's going to win. And the group that is going to win is the group with the most financial backing, right? Sorry. Okay, that's just how the world works. The money talks. Everything else is BS. When it comes down to the money, all of these institutions are going to fold, right? You already can see who's going to be the biggest victim if it really comes down to it. Who are they actually going to side with, right? So again, it's just so funny because this is what they signed up for. This is what people like Claudine Gay wanted, right? This is what she wanted. All you got to do is cry bigotry and hate, okay? You don't have to engage in any real arguments, okay? You don't have to do that. You don't have to engage with the subject matter in an honest way to have an academic debate or debate about anything. All you got to do is just say, well, it's anti-Semitic. Oh, it's racist, right? Oh, it's sexist. Oh, it's homophobic. Oh, it's transphobic. And automatically, people are supposed to just go along with that. And stuff like this is a result of that, right? Because you open the door for it. You open the door for just any accusation of bigotry to lead to you losing your job. The woke mob has come for the woke, right? This is what happens. The woke always eat themselves. And that's what's currently happening with this situation. And that's why I find this to be so fascinating. I don't want people to get twisted. I have no dog in this fight. I think that the lady was unqualified, and I don't think she should have had a job in the first place, okay? Just based off the fact that she essentially was abusing her power to go after people that she disagrees with politically, shouldn't have had the job. However, let's not get it twisted. She was fired because she allowed free speech that certain people didn't like on campus, right? Let's not get it twisted. And the result of this does not need to be less free speech, which will be the result, right? The result will be less free speech. The result actually needs to be more free speech. That's what actually really needs to happen here. But that won't happen here because, unfortunately, you have people analyzing this in the wrong way, right? It's one thing to say that, hey, you know, she shouldn't have had a job in the first place. She was a diversity hire. All that is true. But it's another to understand why she actually got fired and how this really is not helping us go in the right direction in regards to where this country should go, where we should be openly allowing more speech, not less speech, right? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.